what you want to know about this class, expectations for your team, all that good stuff. For anyone who is joining in and joins through the stream, comment, send us a comment, whatever you want to ask. I will answer it at the end of the stream, and we will get to as many questions as possible at the end within the next 30 minutes. But today I want to focus talking about this quarterback situation. We always get quarterback fatigue when we talk about prospects in the 2025 NFL draft. There's so much overthink. There's so much underthink. There is always an awkward analyzation of prospects, especially in a year where there frankly are no good quarterback prospects. I want to start by talking about Cam Ward and his comparisons to Shedeur Sanders. I think that we're now at this spot where we have come to a clearer conclusion that Cam Ward is the absolute first quarterback in this class. I think that a lot of the general public, having watched both of them during the college football season, thought that they were even. And those who had broken down his film were on the page that Cam Ward is in a separate category than what Shedeur Sanders is. Now, that's no knock on Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is going to go on to be a great pro in the NFL. But the reason why the NFL likes Cam Ward just a little bit more is the ceiling. He is perceived to be a guy that can go on to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL if he hits. He has the benefit of the fact that he is a 5-year player in college football. He has so many snaps underneath his belt at 3 different teams, playing at Incarnate Word, playing at Washington State, and playing at Miami. He has the bullets of playing on teams that needed a little bit of a rebuild, needed a little bit of a reset. He knows how to get through adversity. But where we talk about his ceiling, it all comes from his arm strength and especially the confidence that he has behind his arm strength. He's a player who can deliver the ball not only, the arm strength doesn't just mean how far you can throw it. It doesn't mean he could just rip the ball and throw it further than everybody. It means that when there's a tight window, there's a tight gap, he's able to not only drive the ball into those tight windows, but also lighter it to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers. I think oftentimes what holds back a lot of young quarterbacks is lacking the aggressiveness and the confidence in their abilities. We see all the time. This happened with Bryce Young this year. It's happening with Anthony Richardson right now. It happened early on in the career for Jordan Love, and he has completely changed his approach to playing the game. When you are timid in the pocket and you're afraid to take shots, you will not succeed in the NFL. It's kind of like how in the NBA, we have transformed from being low post dominant to now 3-point shooting is key. All the best teams are the best 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. The NFL is moving towards this where if you have playmakers that can take aggressive, risky shots, that is going to produce more success than just constantly dunking the ball off and dumping it off to whatever check down that you have. Being able to be aggressive is one of the most under talked about tools and abilities for quarterbacks to eventually be successful in the NFL. That is all why Cam Ward has driven this conversation. He has gotten to this point, though, where I believe he will be the first overall pick. He has the best odds to be the first overall pick. That does not mean he is going to be selected by the Tennessee Titans. It means that somebody is going to trade up to take him. We found out in Indianapolis that Tennessee is probably going to give Will Levis another shot. That's what it sounds like. I don't know if that's a smokescreen. I don't know if that's a way to try and create a market for this first overall pick. They apparently, according to Diana Rossini, who reported this, want to give Levis one more chance to see if they can get anything out of him. They seem the least likely out of any of the top 5 teams to want to draft a quarterback. Cleveland, surprisingly, really badly wants to get a quarterback, and it makes a lot of sense. They are in a position right now where they're going to have to eat a crap load of money off of Deshaun Watson's contract. And if you're going to have to deal with that dead cap for the next few years, if they get rid of him, you need a cheap option at quarterback. Trying to go the stopgap free agent route with maybe it's Jameis Winston, maybe it's Daniel Jones, that isn't going to produce many results. They're going to be awful. The current general manager and head coach, all of the current group that is together, Stefanski will be out, Barry will be out, because they will be awful for those 4 years if they're trying to find success with free agents. Instead, you have a cheap contract with a rookie that by the time he's done with his rookie deal, then you can pay him and hopefully the Deshaun Watson deal is completely off the books. That is their biggest hurdle. But I really firmly believe that the New York Giants will and have to trade up to the first overall pick. And they have to get Cam Ward. I don't think Shedeur Sanders would fit well with the Giants. Just from a play style standpoint and from the fact that they need somebody flashy. They need somebody that is going to make big splash plays, exciting highlight reel plays, and connect with Malik Neighbors over the top in order to inspire confidence that, hey, this thing is turning in the right direction. With a bad offensive draft class, it's likely that Cam Ward could be the offensive rookie of the year if he does just enough. And if the Giants just barely miss the playoffs, that is what would create a little bit more security for Brian Daboll and for Joe Shame. Now, I found this really interesting. Bob Papa on his show on Believe had a really interesting clip talking about Bill Polian comparing Cam Ward to Steve McNair. If we could play that clip.
Just to follow up on that, Bill Polian told me last week, he said, watching Cam Ward, he said, reminds him of 1995-96, going to Alcorn State and working out Steve McNair.
Steve McNair.
And he said that there's traits about him from a physical standpoint. Obviously, Bill hasn't talked to Cam Ward on the same level that he spent time with Steve McNair. He said, but from a physical, scouting mind, objective look, I see a lot of Steve McNair in Cam Ward.
Well, you would take that, right?
Yeah,
I
think
so. Who wouldn't take that?
But remember, it took Steve McNair several years to develop.
Right.
We've become a microwave NFL now, where it's just throw them in, and by 3 games in, they should be ready to go.
Right, which is why I think the smart teams have the veteran guy who can be the placeholder for a while, right, and let the rookie get his sea legs under him.
So I really love that comparison for Steve McNair, and I've been trying to figure out the best comparison for him because Cam Ward really is an extremely unique prospect. He has this unorthodox demeanor, the way that he plays. He's so casual. It looks like he's going for a walk when he's playing in the pocket, like just a Saturday afternoon stroll. And he's so unbothered when he escapes the pocket as well. And if we just pull up the measurables, I don't know if that directly compares to Steve McNair, but like Steve McNair was a thicker quarterback at 224, and he was around 6'1". Cam Ward, I believe, came in at 6'2" at the NFL Combine, and he is about that same physical profile. But if we're talking about the arm strength, Steve McNair coming in at a little bit of an older age, at a little bit over 22 years old, because he was playing at Alcorn for quite a period of time. He needed time to get a chance to develop, to be good enough to be considered to be an NFL draft prospect. There is just, like, if we look at the build, the arm, a little bit of the play style, I really love that McNair comparison. And we also, what was pointed out in that clip, that Steve McNair wasn't an immediate, ready to go, fully baked prospect. He took a little bit of time. And then we saw the impact that he had for the Titans. Like, it was tremendous what he was able to do to elevate the Titans. I think that Cam Ward can be that. And as somebody who roots for the Giants, I'm going to keep pushing this narrative that the Giants need to do everything possible to go get Cam Ward. And more importantly, like, if Cam Ward comes in, he's going to have a lot of highlights. Like, he's going to create a lot of excitement and a lot of buzz. But he's going to make mistakes. His film is littered with mistakes. He was a lot better at protecting the football this year than he was in the past, but he has made plenty of bad mistakes. In the NFL, he is going to do the same stuff. He's aggressive. I love the aggressiveness. You need to go out there and be aggressive to learn how to mitigate the mistakes instead of just going out there and being afraid to make mistakes. I think Cam Ward is going to hit. I think that it is just beyond clear at this point that he is the first overall quarterback. But the other thing that we have talked about a lot in just NFL spaces that I think is complete BS is Shedeur Sanders and what is going to happen with Shedeur Sanders in this draft class. The report that was coming out was that in these meetings that he was having with teams, that some It came off as he was arrogant. It came off of the fact that he was disinterested. I don't doubt that had happened, but I really believe that was intentional. All we have heard up until this point from Shedeur Sanders, or actually more so from Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders hasn't even really talked about this, but Deion Sanders has said, we're going to pull an Eli, saying that they're going to control where Shedeur Sanders plays. That was never going to be an outward declarative statement. It wasn't going to be Shedeur Sanders during the pre-draft interviews with the media, not with the teams, and just showing up into a microphone with CBS Sports saying, I don't want to go to the Jets. I don't want to play for the Jets. That's never what it was going to be. It was going to be behind the scenes. It was going to be behind in these interviews and in these meetings. And more importantly, it was also not going to be outward. You have to convince a team not to take you. What we had with John Elway is the perfect example. One of the best documentaries that I've watched was covering that draft that ESPN Films did. And what was talked about was how he didn't want to play for the Colts. And he actually directly told the Colts the entire process, I don't want to play for you. And what happened with the first overall pick? They still took him and they threatened to go and play baseball. You can't just tell a team not to take you because that doesn't work. That doesn't, teams are going to still say, we don't care. We're still going to pick you because we need a quarterback and you're the best option in a limited year of quarterback options. So you have to find ways to push a team away. And I also think the other thing that we got to remember here, the decision makers, the coaches are all guys in their 50s and 60s. Shedeur Sanders' personality, if he knows how to make it seem like, hey man, I don't want to play for you, that's going to be ratcheted up to a 10 on how a team is going to perceive it. A bunch of old dudes are going to get pissed off because Shedeur Sanders isn't super excited to come play for them. Like, of course we're going to hear a bunch of 50 and 60-year-olds bothered by the fact that he doesn't want to be there, or it seemed like he wasn't engaged in the conversation. I always find it so funny. There are certain pre-draft red flags that come up where James Pierce Jr. is an example of one side where you talk to people around his college team and then you hear how the interviews go and they're worried if he's like really ready to take the next step and if he really wants it bad enough to be great. That's a different conversation. Or you have the Mike Green Jr. issue coming from Marshall, who has multiple, and this is reported on, alleged sexual assault situations. And NFL teams being worried about how he has handled himself and how he has responded to questions about that. Those are completely different. But we constantly forget that when an interview doesn't go well and that a player comes off as not their style, a team style, that there is a massive generational disconnect on communication. That there, of course, is going to be an old dude that's pissed off with the way that a guy responds and handles himself. So I am not buying any of this crap with Shedeur Sanders tanking his stock and he's going to fall out of the first round. I'm not buying it. The biggest part is coming into this draft. All I heard was that he's an amazing leader. He was out of any prospect. All you heard was that Shedeur Sanders was liked tremendously by his teammates. So it's so odd to me all of the sudden, here we are, that now he's got a problem. Not to mention all the cameras that have been on him over the past 2-3 years. And now we're finding out he's an ass. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying any of that. If in terms of best fits, though, for him, I really think that him ending up with the Browns would work really well from just a scheme standpoint. It's not a good situation for him to play in. I would love to see him play on a team that is not going to rush him onto the field and is going to have the resources to build around him. The Browns work because we saw with Stefanski's offense, we've seen with Stefanski's offense, timing, touch with Deshaun Watson has completely regressed in, is how that offense flourishes. They run the ball, they run heavy, they set up a lot of their passing game off of play action. I think that Shedeur Sanders would work really well in that. The other team is the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, there was that stretch of time where, a lot of speculation here, but there was that stretch of time where whenever the Raiders would lose, Shedeur Sanders would, I think he would tweet like, thank God or something like that. Some people thought that was for the Giants. Sounds like he wants to go play for the Raiders. They're a team with a lot of cap space and a potential to have a lot of draft capital to build around him. That is a spot where you look, new head coach, new general manager, you are being committed to in the first year of both spots. There is no jockeying back and forth between a GM that was already there or a head coach that was already there when the opposite position was filled. You are going to be selected if you're Shedeur Sanders with the mind with the decision making of like, we're going to continue to cycle and build things around it. And most importantly, Chip Kelly, I don't know what this offense is going to look like because it's not going to be identical to what it was at Ohio State. But we know that play action is important, that motion, that misdirection is really important. Will Howard was really good this year for Ohio State because when he was in a rhythm, he was accurate. And when you're accurate in this offense, it sets up playmakers to create after the catch. That is what Chip Kelly is going to be able to get, but at an even better level with Shedeur Sanders. I'm rooting for the most. I want to see him with the Raiders. I think that his career would flourish with the Raiders, and I'm just hoping that's not one of the teams that the interviews didn't go well with. We'll end up seeing what happens with this draft class, though, but there is, I think, just a very mischaracterization of the narratives of both these guys. The last part I want to get to, before we get to some questions that were sent to me this week when I posted on Twitter. I am not in on the whole Jackson Dart bit. First of all, it sounds like the NFL values Jalen Milroe more than Jackson Dart because of his upside. They value him for having the tools to be an eventual starter. At the very least, you can use him in sub packages as a runner. I think that the NFL values him that way, and I personally do too. He is my third quarterback in this class. Jackson Dart's fine. Charles Davis put out a mock draft where he had him going third overall to the Giants. I'm not there. We did this in 2022 with an awful quarterback class where we projected way too many guys to go early. And this class outside of the top two guys is very similar. There are a lot of dudes that I do not think, and I do not feel like the NFL is super excited about. Jackson Dart is quite literally Matt Corral. He reminds me of Matt Corral. I think that there is a world that Jackson Dart could start because he's experienced and he's accurate. He does not have the arm strength the requisite arm strength that we look for in quarterbacks to succeed, which is a problem. I just don't see a high-level decision maker and a high-level tools guy enough to feel good about selecting him anywhere in the top 25 picks. This is a second-round pick that you take to be a high-level backup with the possible upside to start. His ceiling is Derek Carr. Derek Carr unexpectedly started early for the Raiders, and he ended up being great for a stretch. But his ceiling was capped. His ceiling was visibly there, and he can never get past it, and he still hasn't gotten past it. The more football he's played, we have started to see that he was at his ceiling a while ago. That's Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart will never be more than Andy Dalton or Derek Carr. So for the love of God, please stop projecting him and putting him in these mock drafts as a top 15 pick or sooner. I can't even get there with top 20. I can't. All right, let's get some questions, folks. Quick reminder, as we do these on Thursdays, send in your questions to me. I will do a tweet at Joe Deleone. Send those in. The questions that we have, the first one, Jay Graham. Love Coach Jay Graham, former Tennessee football player. How many quarterbacks will go in the top two picks? So on that vein of discussion, 2. I think it's going to be 2. I think Shedeur is going to be a top 10 pick. I think that Cam Ward, as we said, is a lock to be the first overall pick at this point. I don't think anyone else goes there. I think that there is going to be not enough desperation to say we're going with Jackson Dart. I think it's going to be a lot of teams that are like, you know, let's just address these other positions. Let's get all the rest of this stuff figured out first. Jay Graham also asks, best tight end in the draft. I have Colston Loveland as my tight end 1, but I have a very close narrow tie between him and Tyler Warren from Penn State. Tyler Warren is a really good athlete for a 260-pound tight end. He moves really well in and out of his breaks. Great acceleration. I think he's somebody who's going to be perfect in an offense as like a dump off option. He also can accelerate and win vertically. He can win up the middle of the field. I like Colston Loveland a little bit more, though, because I think that he is that stretch the field type of a tight end. And I think that his change of direction without losing any speed at his size is phenomenal. I wonder if Colston Loveland, like what his testing would be like. I hope that he runs at his pro day. I think that he'd be a 4.5 guy, which is blazing fast. Any team that wants to stretch the field, Colston Loveland is the player to go with. We already answered this from Mark Bergen, host of Believe in Steelers. It was on Believe in Steelers this week, was also on Believe in Patriots this week. Asking which team do you think will draft Shedeur Sanders? I think if I were to guess will, I think that the Browns, if they don't move up to 1 to try and box out the Giants for Cam Ward, that the Browns will draft Shedeur Sanders. And then last question from Chester. What is a weird question you would ask a player in an interview? Non-football related question. I got to be honest, I don't know if anyone saw this. Jalen McMillan, wide receiver for the Buccaneers coming into Washington, there was a clip of him in last year's pre-draft talking about like what his weird hobby was. And he was talking about how he would go to the grocery store and buy obscure bags of chips and cereal, which is so random. Like, this is the most bizarre thing ever. Like, I kind of wonder if McMillan's okay that he's spending his time doing this. And then he eats it. That is his hobby. I would try to be as direct as possible of being like, what's the weirdest thing that you do? Who answers that honestly? Because the guys that answer that honestly, like, I know that they're going to be great to work with in the locker room. Like my day 2, day 3 picks, I want guys, especially day 3 picks, I want guys that are going to mesh with the team. If you're going to be that honest with me that you buy weird cereal, like as you're in your free time, that's bizarre. Like, a lot of people should be judging him because that is a weird thing. I say that jokingly, but I want to know what like makes certain guys tick. You know, those are the types of questions that I certainly would ask. Folks, that's going to be it for me. We're going to be back likely on Tuesday at noon again. Thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe to the Believe YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter at Joe Deleone. Check out A to Z Sports Film Room for more breakdowns as we get in the nitty gritty with my co-host Ryan Roberts and I. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your week.